Welcome to our school board meeting on June 8th, 2016. Cut. Start over. Welcome to our board meeting tonight. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, the board will recess into executive session until 7 p.m. to discuss the performance of a public employee. No decisions will be made at that time, and we'll be back at 7. Bye-bye. Please don't put that on YouTube. Tonight we have come back from executive session and we'll proceed with the remainder of our agenda. At this time, I'll
motion to approve the agenda with the amendment.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. At this time, we'll move into our board member discussion. Director Gerber, do you have a legislative report?
Yes. So NSBA, which is the National School Board Association, announced their federal advocacy priorities this last week. So I just wanted to mention those. These are the things that they have outlined that they're going to be prioritizing in their advocacy for the nation. So those bullet points right there, I'm just going to read through. NSBA will work to fully fund and modernize the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. They will expand, strengthen, and retain the educator workforce, strengthen investments in ESEA Title I and Career and Technical Education, CTE. They will promote digital access, digital literacy, and cybersecurity. They're going to advocate to prioritize student health, wellness, and safety, and they're going to be opposing the school vouchers. So we see that a lot of their priorities, do match up with things that we're working on here, things with CTE and the special ed funding. And so, yeah, we like these priorities that they've announced for this upcoming session. So, any questions about that? If you are interested, this document that she's showing there, this is just the bullet points, but it has like a bunch of paragraphs about each one and how they're going to go about that. If anyone's interested, it's a good read.
Great, thank you. I apologize, I forgot to ask at the beginning of the meeting, is there any need for translation? No? Okay. We will move on to talking about our board retreat in July. Are we looking for dates? Okay.
Passes.
Only July 1st through the 31st. I can't make it.
Is it like after hours? I should be fine if it's anything after 4.
I will be out of town.
Later than that would be better for me.
July 20th? Got nothing on my calendar, so.
Hours, like how long are we talking about?
I would think 3 to 4.
Okay.
What about July 9th?
That'll work for me.
That's fine.
You out of town? Okay. Tentative July 9th. That's a Thursday, boss. We'll wait. Well, yeah. Let's shoot for July 9th, but if you're gone, we can reschedule that. Anything else for board member discussion? Okay. At this time, I will accept a motion to approve the required approvals.
I'll make a motion to approve required approvals.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. At this time, I will accept a motion to approve accounts payable warrants 2.
I'll make the motion to approve accounts payable warrants 2.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes 4-0. 4-1? 4-0 with 1 abstention. Sorry. At this time, I will accept a motion to approve accounts payable warrants 3.
I'll make the motion to approve accounts payable warrants 3.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. At this time, we'll turn it over to Wahidas for their elementary board report.
All right, there we go. All right, first of all, thank you for having us tonight. I'm Justin Johnson, the principal at Wahidas. This is Seamus McPartland, our assistant. We didn't bring any teachers with us tonight, and it's just that time of year. Everyone's really, really busy, and there's a lot going on. So we said we got it, and we'll take it from here. So it was great seeing you guys in the building. Gosh, a couple weeks ago, I don't even know. Time's flying these days, but end of the year can get a little crazy, but it was nice for you to see real life, kind of what happens and what's going on at this time of the year. So with that said, we're going to jump in. One of the things that we talk about a lot at Wahidas is maintaining a growth mindset. And so talking about things that are working but also not working. But then when we say that something didn't work, it doesn't mean that it was the end of the road. Like, oh, it didn't work, we're done with it, on to the next. And so really talking about that idea of growth mindset and the sentences you see there, this year we'll do it, next year we'll do it better. If you talk to many of our teachers and you listen to them for very long, you'll hear something like that. Sometimes they'll say, today we'll do it, tomorrow we'll do it better, or this year we'll do it, next year we'll do it better, things like that. And really that's the growth mindset, that it might not be perfect right now. It might not be perfect to start. You don't have to be perfect to start, but you got to start to be perfect, right? You got to get there or get going and see what we need to fix and go from there. So that's a big part of who we are, and I hope you hear that through these next few slides. With that said, there's 11 things that we call our non-negotiables. And so if you've never seen these before, we've been defining our work by them for probably 6 or 7 years now. And so stay focused, foster our culture, and contribute to positive climate, maximize teaching time, utilize common curriculum, value assessment, together lesson plan all core instruction, deliver world-class instruction, analyze data, support all students through walkthroughs, continually push ourselves and give and receive feedback, and then set lofty goals and hold ourselves accountable. So yeah, those are just the 11 things that we use to make sure that we're staying on track. And if it ever comes down to a question, we in my mind, we go back to those things and we say, are we doing this? Is this really what we're doing? And they lead some conversations with staff members sometimes about, if we're out of bounds a little bit in those areas. And so they help us really stay going the same direction. So the first focus, we've had the same 3 foci, whatever the word is, for the last few years, but it's just evolved. And so the first one is what we teach. You can see on the left there's a gray column, and the first one is set the roadmap. The blue text is utilize common curriculum. You'll notice that was from one of our non-negotiables. So this is what that really means. Over the last 6 years, Over the last 6 years, you can see how that has progressed as our focus. So in 2020, 2021, what were we doing in that area and so forth? And it's really small. It's hard to read here, but the reason putting that up there is I wanted you guys to see that it's going back to that growth mindset. This year we'll do it, next year we'll do it better, then the next year we'll do it better. And this has been like a 6 or 7 year process for us with each of these areas of focus. So in what we teach, the first one, utilize common curriculum. We did introduce something new this year that I'm going to tell you about here in a second, and we asked our teachers to go out on a limb and give it a shot, and so that's what they did. We gave them probably 3 or 4 hours of training, and we said, now try it, and it was clunky at the beginning, but then they really got into it, and you're going to see here in a second what that is. It's called Spring Math. The second part of that at the bottom, value assessment, we're not going to talk too much about that, but then analyze data. Seamus is going to talk to us about some of the things we asked the teachers to do this year that were new to us that live in that area. So with that said, I skipped that one. Spring Math. So what is Spring Math? It all started last year. We did a book study with our leadership team, Visible Learning for Mathematics by John Hattie, thank you. Couldn't think of the name. And we, at the end of the book, throughout it, we were talking about things that we were reading about that we'd want to implement. Like, what is the next steps for us? What could help us get to the next, take that next step? And one of the things was math intervention, especially for our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, because when you get to that level of math, intervening gets pretty difficult because the gaps can be pretty big, and also trying to find materials that really hit that content without, you don't want to pull the kids out of like third or their core content, but you want to intervene in some way. So the book study really led us to, like, what can we do to make sure we don't get kids in 4th, 5th, and 6th that are 2, 3, 4 years behind in math, because that's incredibly difficult. And I'm sure you could hear the middle school and the high school say the same thing. You know, when they're behind in math, it's very difficult. Same thing in reading. But so what we did was we went out and we looked, and we found a research-based or backed, I wouldn't call it a curriculum, but it's a program that we used. It's an intervention program, but it's kind of a prevention program, meaning that it's for all students. All kids in core get it. It takes about 10 minutes a day, and every kid gets it, but it's around fact fluency. And you might be thinking, well, fact fluency, 2 plus 2, 3 plus 3, or your multiplication and division facts, but it's not just that. It's more mathematical thinking fluency, and the reason we want to work on that is because if you think of, like, if you asked a kid to write an essay and they still were learning how to write their ABCs, or they had to think about how do I spell every single word, and you want them to write a full essay, that'd be incredibly difficult, right? It's the same thing in math. If kids don't have that foundational skill or those foundational skills, and you're asking them to do long division, which requires you to divide, multiply, subtract, divide, multiply, subtract, divide over and over and over again, but they're still in their head saying, okay, 20. Every time, it just slows them down, and they have to use so much cognitive load on just the facts themselves that it takes up so much brain space that it really slows them down. So the facts, the whole idea behind it is, it's not just about being faster, but it's about being freer. Kids can do things quicker, and they can free up their mental capacity to think at a higher level. I wanted to read you this because thinking of the system as a whole, research consistently shows that students are most successful in algebra when they enter middle school with a strong number sense, fluent recall of basic facts, and a solid understanding of foundational arithmetic, because then they can focus on the algebraic reasoning rather than the basic computation, right? So what does that look like? Will it play?
All right, workers, you are up first. I should hear your conversations.
You turn the volume up.
You can use our sentence starters to help you. I see
This is a second grade classroom and what it looks like.
Ready, and go.
So 8 plus 1 is 9, 2 plus 7, 8, 9 plus 2, 9 plus 9. Then I know that 2 plus 9 equals 11, so I'm going to drop 11 downtown. So, and then 7 minus 3 equals 4. And then I know we're adding, so 4 plus 1 equals 5, and then 6 plus 0 equals 6, and then plus 1 equals 5.
All right, so I think you get the picture, right? They're paired up. One's doing the speaking, one's doing the kind of the listening and the hearing of the other person's thinking, and then you didn't get to see it, but the timer goes off, and then they switch roles. And so they're doing it back and forth, and then after that, then they have a chance to race the clock and see how many they can get done in, I think it's 2 minutes. I'm not 100% sure, but it's not just throwing a math fact sheet at them. It's saying, you know, what are we thinking about? What is a good mathematician or somebody that understands it? What are they thinking when they do it? Okay, now you do it, and I'm going to listen. So it's that every single day. And also, I talked to you before, it's not just math facts. So this is an example of kindergarten, one of the weeks that they go through. So they have to do, counting in order or identify numbers. So 9, 10, 11. And this one is hard for them, blank 2, 3, having to think what comes first. And so it's that number sense fluency that they're working on over and over again in different ways at each grade level to really build that background for them. Here's an example of second grade. If you think back to second grade, this is probably not what you remember, but this is one of the weeks that they go through. So 19 take away 14 is the same as 19 take away 10 take away something else. Again, much deeper than just that fluency piece, but they're having to quickly reason with numbers. And the whole class has to get to a certain benchmark before they can move on. So some of the skills take 2, 3, 4 weeks, but the more you hit it, the more you hear each other talking about it, eventually it sinks in and then you get to move on. And then last but not least, 5th grade. So you can see the kind of progression, and it's like I said, it's not just math facts. It's really having to use numbers quickly in your head and think mathematically. So I'm going to turn it over to Seamus here.
So like Justin was saying, we say today we'll do it, tomorrow we'll do it better. And so the slide up here is aggressive monitoring 2.0. And so one of the things that we ask teachers to do is make sure that they're tracking student data, that they're up and aggressively monitoring the student work so that we can respond to the work that we see. One of the things that was tight in there was that the teachers are going to track the skills. They are going to be up and monitoring the room. And then they have to respond to it. So it's not just about tracking it and taking data, but what are you actually going to do with the data? What was a little bit loose was that could be daily or weekly. It could be the teachers got to decide what the spreadsheets look like. They got to decide how often the assessments might be, depending on how quickly they wanted to respond to what they were seeing. And then the format. So the format on the sheets on the next page, we'll take a look at. Sorry, I didn't grab that.
You're good.
So right here, this is the 2nd grade decoding sheet, and this is their aggressive monitoring. So if you look across the top, there are different skills. And then the check boxes are when the students meet those particular skills. So that way the teachers can quickly reference and see how well the kids are doing or where they're struggling. And then this guides their walk to read. So the paras actually have access to this as well. And then as they're going in and reteaching some of these skills, they can actually mark the boxes that the teacher's using as well. Across the top, you'll see the overall percent on the top of the column. And as I said, this drives the walk to read, so the teachers and the paras both have access to it. Another example here is 5th grade. So you'll see they look very different, but they're basically doing the same thing. So this is a 5th grade math. So you'll still see the standards on top. They're doing a weekly check, and then they like the colors because for them, they can see it a little bit easier on where the kids are. And so green would be the students have already achieved mastery of whatever that skill is. Yellow, they're getting close. And red, they still need some intervention and some help with that one. And then this info drives their walk to math. Again, paras have access to this, and then they can change groups every week.
So this is per student? Each student is being graded on these, like, marks?
Yeah, this right here is covering up their student's name, so each row is a student. But we covered those up so you couldn't see them. Yep.
It may be a question for the board to make a connection to your own careers or lives. Is there anything that you do at work or in your life that you aggressively monitor that makes you do it in a more informed way?
My bank account.
Yeah.
Lots of things, yeah, definitely. Schedule for projects, lots of things.
Yeah, I think that concept of out of sight, out of mind, especially for student needs, can be problematic, especially when you're dealing with a number of students every day. And if you're having kids that do walk-tos and show up and all the things that we ask our teachers to keep organized, these kinds of structures and supports allow them to do it in a more informed way. I think Seamus kept using that over and over. The information helps you perform better. It helps you decide, here's where we're headed, here's what that particular student needs. So, but again, I think for folks who are disciplined in other areas of their lives or their jobs, this happens all the time. In schools, some people have a problem with the word aggressive. What does aggressive mean to you in this instance, the way they've described it?
I mean, to me, it's like they're just always making sure, they're always checking, always on top of it. So the way he's describing it, aggressive doesn't seem as a scary word. It's like we just want to make sure that they can do it right.
I would say, using a sports analogy, I don't think there's a single athlete that can win a game without being aggressive. Even in golf, like, you have to be aggressive about your practice, you have to be aggressive about your swing, aggressive about your diligence, if you want to win. And We want to win, meaning we want kids to succeed. We want them to learn. We want them to have high outcomes. And so when you're passive about learning, you aren't successful.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the intended, and I think that's how the teachers receive it. And this is happening at other buildings as well. But the description of it sometimes for staff can be, I'm not sure I like that word with a third grader.
All right, so System Focus 2 is how we teach, and again, this has been the same for about 6 years now. You can see the progression. I forgot to call out on the last System Focus, but at the bottom here, you can see in the blue, it's kind of the overarching statement of what our goal is, and with how we teach, it's to create a system and structure of high quality instruction to accelerate the learning for all students. So making sure that the instruction is designed so it's not just accelerating maybe the top half or closing the gap with just the bottom half but leaving the top half behind. It's really creating that system so that all kids are getting accelerated growth, and it doesn't matter which classroom you might end up in, one of the 4 or one of the 3, everybody's going to have part of that system that everybody's going to be getting a high quality education, and how we teach will be pretty much the same. It's not lockstep. Everybody has their own twist on things and their own style in the classroom, but the heart of the instruction is the same in all classrooms. So the area I want to talk about here within the lesson planning and in instruction is our PLCs. And you can see that was in the 25-26 focus area. So with our PLCs, they've evolved over the last probably 4 years. 1.0 was 4 years ago, where we did 30 minutes of Monday morning 3 through 6 ELA. We got together and talked about common instruction and the targets and things like that. The next year, which was 3 years ago, we did 45 minutes with the 3 through 6 ELA teachers and rehearsals, so them getting up in front of each other and teaching the lesson itself. And then it evolved even further last year into K6 math for 30 minutes, and then K6 phonics for 30, and 3-6 ELA for 30. So we were all together for 30 minutes, and then we split off for another 30 in K2 and 3-6 bands. And again, just really digging into the cohesion piece, making sure we're all on the same page, teaching things the same way. This year, it evolved a little bit, and when you think of the gradual release model, so it's heavy in direct instruction is I do, we do, you do, and that's a way that you can teach kids how to do something, like that you watch, they watch them, or you do it, then all together we do it, and then you do it. And so this had a gradual release feel to it, and so this year was a little bit more on the teachers and not so much directed by us. What that looked like was, this is just 1 week, but you can see on the left it's September 22nd, and then the participants were here, and so I would send this out every Monday morning at about 7:30. So this week, 5th and 6th grade math got together. They met in Sunny's room. This was the time frame. They needed to bring work samples and talk about this. And then 3rd, 4th, and 6th grade ELA met. They needed to bring their Chromebooks. They needed to talk about what were we going to do different in Target 4 because we hadn't done so hot last year, right? And so I gave them targeted things to talk about, and they split up, but we weren't all together. So it was a little bit more gradual release because we couldn't be in all places at all times. And the cool part about that is, again, it's that evolution and seeing where we started and then where we got. What we learned about this year, maybe it was too much gradual release, and so we need to go back a little bit more to the we do next year, but again, kind of finding that sweet spot of where we're at. And it's also really cool to see, too, from a district perspective, how some of these things are being taken by their building, kind of these ideas, and used in their own way. But the intent behind it is really the same, that we need to get teachers together and we need them talking about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, because the last thing you want kids to do is the kids shouldn't be the ones connecting the dots from grade 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. They shouldn't have to be the ones to do that. Us as adults should connect them for them. And so it's cohesive, and it just gets gradually harder for them. I'm gonna leave it there. We're gonna go
Can
on to the
I
next.
connect one dot really quickly? One for the school level, and then one for the board level. So what Justin just described around, if you go back to the vertical collaboration slide, that one, and the specific activities he's asking teachers to consider and think about, and then you go back to slide 2. Can we go all the way back to slide 2?
What's 2?
The non-negotiables. You see in the non-negotiable section, together, lesson plan, all core instruction. That's what we do, right? That's what everyone is expected to do. And so that evidence of that is this structure and design. I think for something for the board and the district to consider is starting school late every Monday has an impact on families. There's a cost to it. And so our responsibility and your responsibility is to aggressively monitor, is that making a difference for our students? And can we point to structures and systems that exist in our schools that say, yeah, that's worth our investment. So when then your neighbor asks you, why are we starting at 10 o'clock on Mondays? Here's why. Here's what teachers do when those things happen. Here's the things here's the outcomes that we get for kids when we have that time to put that together.
Got to find the right one. So again, here, one of the focus areas is literacy as well. Every student needs to spend hundreds of hours not only reading but writing and speaking about what they're reading, about what they're doing, about what they're learning in school. And so we try to provide those opportunities whenever we can. So this is the 6th year of really dialing in what ELA literacy looks like for us. And really the work's been driven by the teachers. So as Justin was describing, when they're getting together and talking about and planning together and talking about what they're going to be teaching, the teachers are the ones driving a lot of this instruction that's happening in the buildings. And what's really neat about it too is the work is spreading. So there's closer alignment across, I would say, the school district today than maybe there has been in a really long time. So we have similar resources and instructional strategies that are being used across the district, which is really exciting. So we did 2 book studies last year. So Justin talked about visible learning in math, but we also did visible learning in literacy as well. And so what came out of that was several meetings doing this book study and the teachers really deciding what they wanted to focus on. And so that's how we kind of got to this goal area for literacy. And so we started doing accountable talk stems this year. And they're scaffolded across, they're scaffolded by grade level. So obviously the lower the level grade, the more support that the students have, and the more simple sentences that they are. And then obviously we try to expand as we progress throughout the grades. So if you look up here, it talks about effect size. And so 0.4 is expected growth for 1 year for a student. And if you look up at classroom discussion, the effect size is 0.82. So if you can get kids talking, they're actually going to be learning more. So talking about their learning, not just facing a book. Feedback, 0.75. So again, almost 2 years of growth there as well. So you can hopefully notice a trend that we're doing the aggressive monitoring, and then obviously this focus on accountable talk as well. Metacognitive strategies, so thinking about what you're thinking about what you're doing, 0.64, and then peer tutoring, 0.51, and that's kind of how spring math came about too, is getting the students talking about what they're doing, but higher level student with a struggling student. Let's see, did I miss? Oh, and then we're also trying to replicate this, what we're doing in Gen Ed, into the SPED world as well. And so we're focusing on sorry, I don't know what I pushed. Yep. We're replicating the systems approach. So SPED, when we had SPED in 2 different buildings, everybody was very isolated in their thinking and their work and all that sort of thing. And so now that we have everybody together, we're trying to create a system. And we're starting with vocabulary like we talked about at our last, when you guys came to the building. So we've seen sentence stems in classrooms a lot higher frequency use of those AAC communication devices. common prompts and expectations is our next goal. And that would mean that all teachers, all paras, all people that work in those SPED rooms would be using similar prompts with students, but also know what the expected response from the student would be. So when a teacher prompts a student, we all expect the same level of response based on the student's communication level.
All right, so that brings us back to our non-negotiables. The last one you see there is hold ourselves accountable. So set lofty goals and hold ourselves accountable. So that takes many forms, but one that I wanted to, the one that's new to us this year that I wanted to show you and highlight for you is this is a live data dashboard. It's not live here, obviously, because it's an image, but Marissa, can you click on it? Right there, yep. So this dashboard is available for our teachers or anybody that wants to be watching how we're doing, I guess. Those sheets that you saw earlier of the aggressive monitoring for every skill that's happening, this it automatically populates in here and shows us. So we can see, like in the first week of kinder, the AMST, I think it is. We had about 80 some odd percent that have mastered that. And so for every skill we've taught, we can see where we're at. Can you scroll down a little bit? So it goes to first grade decoding. You can see second grade decoding here, and they have a bar graph that how many kids that on our weekly progress monitoring are showing fluency. Then it goes to 3-6 ELA, our interims, how they've done. Keep going. You can see math at the bottom. So 5th, 6th, and then you get into math, the same thing, by skill and by standard, because the teachers are aggressive monitoring and paying attention every day in class. That triggers this, or it populates this for me and for them, so we can at any moment see like which kids how many of our kids are struggling, how many kids our kids have got it, are we on track, is there one grade that might be struggling in a certain area. There's lots of different things you can look at, but if you don't have information like this, it's really hard to know, right? And also it goes back to, like I said, the hold ourselves accountable, non-negotiable, because when you know that this is out there for everyone to see, it's not a shaming thing or I got you thing, but it holds you accountable, right? If you have to put out there how you're doing and you know that it's out there, you know you got to produce, because you don't want to be the one that's not doing that, right? And so for all grades, it's there, and so that's how we hold ourselves accountable. So last but not least, I only had one slide left, and it was just going back to the growth mindset. And hopefully you can hear, or you have heard a couple examples of how the work has evolved, and the teachers have that mindset of, we got to just try something and then we're going to make it better. And like Seamus said, I'd say a good 75% of what we do in the ballpark is directly from our teachers. Like they've tried something, it didn't work. We tried something else, it didn't work. Oh, now we got something that worked. Okay, now how do we make that better? How do we scale it so everybody's doing it? If something hasn't worked for a couple years, we don't do it. Then what's next? And they're really good about that. They're really good about having that mindset and not being scared to try something. And they might joke with us and say, don't come in the next couple days because I'm trying. But I think they trust us enough to know that's the process. And if once we get it figured out, then we'll go on to the next thing, and then to the next thing, and to the next thing. And by then, the first thing that you fixed is now kind of out of date, and you got to start over. And so it's a long process, but with that growth mindset idea is really, really what gets us there. So that's all we have. Any questions for us?
I don't really have a question, but I do have a comment. I really enjoyed our site visit. Mm-hmm. I know that my question pre-hand was what makes your school stand out, right? And the one thing that I felt like was a universal was that you guys are very relational. Your teacher, staff, it's a longevity thing, and so I just wanted to say that goes a long ways in the community. So thank you for that, and because I know there's always teachers that stick out to people, and so it's obvious that your school does that very well.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Any questions for us?
Not a question, just a comment as well, that we get a lot of positive feedback from parents of your kids about their experience at the school, and we appreciate that a lot. And like Bertie said, thank you for taking our questions, and you got our questions ahead of time about what we wanted to see at the site visit, and that was great. We answered exactly what we asked. And then also thank you for hosting the SPED department there. It makes a huge difference to those kids, even though it's a lot more work for you guys, so we appreciate that.
I wanted to add on to what Aaron said just about special education. It was really nice to go in there and really hear from the teachers, but also afterwards I asked you, like, what are they doing to take care of themselves as well? And you guys had great answers. So I really did appreciate that. And even Heidi gave us the reason why, right? Being disconnected and the hardship it was putting on families. So I just think, like Aaron said, it's awesome that you guys have it there. And I learned a lot, especially when we were there. So
good.
I appreciate the growth mindset. We use that a lot in our business and in goal setting in my marriage and as a family and all sorts of things. Like a growth mindset is what sets apart winners and losers. So I mean, I don't know if that's how. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't mean that offensively. I meant that like, well done. And I love coming to your guys' school. Your site visit is always very well planned. I mean, it's just as good as your board report where everything is thought out and particular, and you do it with both your staff in mind, but also us in mind, in dumbing things down for us a little bit and keeping us engaged and not going over our head with too many technical things. So I just really appreciate it. And I know you have a great staff, and a great staff is only great when you have leaders who know how to lead. And you guys do such a great job at being leaders of your school. So thank you so much. Thank you for the experience that our kids get, that our staff get, that everything that happens at Wahid is due to the effort that you guys put in. So I just want to say thank you so much for all of that. I know it has been a craft that you have been perfecting for years and has not come easy. And year after year, I appreciate that you look at what works and what didn't work and that you move on. And sometimes you have to throw things out, and but at least you tried to improve it. And so I always appreciate your transparency and the work that you guys put in there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming tonight.
All right. Thank you for having us.
thank you.
Do we have any public comment? Okay. We'll move on to our upcoming events. June 9th is the Ludokaga Dual Language Night at the OHS Gym at 6:30. June 10th is Husky Beginnings at 7 p.m. Do you want a head count for June 9th, Madi? Or are you just doing you already did okay. Everyone's still planning on being there for Husky Beginnings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. June 12th is the last day of school. Woohoo. And June 22nd is our board meeting at noon. Anything else to add to that?
I have a question. When do we get our students, our board reps?
Should be in the next meeting. I think our other ones are just off now.
And
In the summer?
okay.
I did speak with one of them today at the high school, and she came up to me and said, I'm ready to go. So I told her after today's board meeting I would circle back with her, and we'll catch them both and say, hey, here are the meetings in the summertime. Are you interested, or you want to wait till the start of the school year? But they're raring to go.
Perfect. Respect either way. I mean, I understand it's summer vacation, so maybe they'll be hit and miss. Totally understandable. We'll move on to our board self-assessment of the meeting. I appreciate everyone coming. I know, like, the end of the year school burnout is real, so I appreciate you guys showing up. And yeah.
Just an extra thank you to Pete and Marissa and everyone for all the work they've put in for graduation. I thought it went really well, so thank you.
The Wahidis report was excellent.
10 out of 10. It's also great to have a full board here tonight, minus our student reps, but a full school board. Do we have anything else? Okay. At this time, the board will recess into executive session for 60 minutes to discuss the performance of a public employee. The